Hi, welcome to the Data Analysis and Policy Show, the show where we turn data into analysis so that you can make the right policy. My name is Ronica Almeida, and in this episode we're going to look at the foreign direct investments in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. So if you are part of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, you are a business owner, you are a policy maker, you are an investor in the Eastern Caribbean, let's look at some figures of the foreign direct investments in the Eastern Caribbean, in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. So all the people, stay tuned. With this episode is going to be awesome, and stay with me. Hi, my name is Ronica Almeida, and as you know, every Friday at 4 o'clock we are going into the show with special things for you. This show is about data analysis and policy. I base all my decisions, investment decisions and policy decisions for advising business owners, investors, and policymakers in the Eastern Caribbean. As you know, I have created 10 economic and investment macroeconomic models for the Eastern Caribbean and the Dutch Caribbean, and I'm going to show you some of my framework, part of my framework for analyzing the external sector, the financial and capital account, and especially the indicator is the foreign direct investments in this episode. So why would you want to listen to me? You want to listen to me because data is very important, and as you know, the foreign direct investments in a country, they give an indication of how competitive the country is. So if you are not receiving a lot of foreign direct investments, if you are not receiving a lot of money on the financial and capital account, those are the parts of the accounts on the balance of payments, then there is something can be wrong with your island. And in this island, in this episode, I'm going to show you my framework that I use to analyze the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Every island or every country in the world has a balance of payments, and the balance of payments is often created, most of the time it is created by the central bank of that country or that island. And in the balance of payments you see the transactions with the outside world. So in this case, Eastern Caribbean, all the Eastern Caribbean islands, they have a balance of payments, and the balance of payments is created by the Eastern Caribbean Currency Bank, Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank creates this balance of payments for the whole ECCU, the whole Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, and also for each island. So it depends if you are in Dominica or in Montserrat, or if you are in Grenada. Do you believe, just type below, do you believe that Grenada is receiving more foreign direct investments than for instance Montserrat? Do you believe that, for instance, St. Kitts and Nevis is receiving more foreign direct investments than the St. Vincent and the Grenadines or St. Lucia? So who is contributing to the foreign direct investments in the Eastern Caribbean, and how much? That's the main question. Now, for Curacao and St. Martin, they are also in a central in a currency union. They have the same currency, and it is very important to monitor the situation of the currency of the currency union. So if you are in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, it's very important to monitor these indicators, because these indicators indicate how the financial sector of that region, of that currency union is what the status is. So I'm going to show you my screen right now. I'm going to show you my screen, and what you see here is the balance of payment framework that I've created. Now this balance of payment framework, what you see here is the total, is one indicator for the whole Eastern Caribbean. You see first the current account, and the current account is negative most of the time because those are export minus imports. Exports, the total exports, what the people in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union are exporting, that's money flowing in, and import minus the imports, that money flowing out. So you see here that basically in 2008 they had a negative 4.4 billion EC currency, EC dollars, 4.4 billion, and it was a negative. And in 2009 it was 2.8 billion negative. So the exports were 2.8 billion EC dollar lower than the imports. And in 2008, that was probably the financial crisis, the imports were 4.4 billion higher than the exports. Why is this happening? Because most of the time the exports are dependent on the financial crisis, but the imports, people need the food, people need the fuel, they need to keep importing fuel for their cars, etc., for electricity. They need to keep importing food, so the imports will stay high, while because of the financial crisis, the exports decrease. So here you see, that's why you see a peak, negative peak in the current account. Now, how is that money financed? If the current account is negative minus 4.4 billion EC dollar, and one US dollar is 2.7 EC dollar. If the current account is negative 4.4 billion, then you see in 2008 still the capital and financial accounts were 4.6 billion. So you have around, let's say 200 million still coming in more than the deficit. And those 200 million EC dollars, they are added to the foreign reserves stock. So whenever the current account deficit is higher than the capital and financial account, you have a decrease of the total number of dollars or euros that such a currency union have. So you don't want to happen, because if this capital account, the balance of capital and financial account are less than the current account deficit, then you actually have a decrease of the foreign reserves, and the whole EC Union, the whole Eastern Caribbean Currency Union needs to have at least 3 months of reserves. So whenever this is not in balance, you have a decrease of the reserves. So if this continued, for instance, in 2009, you see that there is much more on the balance of capital and financial account than the deficit on the current account. You see that one? Okay. So now in this balance of capital and financial accounts, in there is the foreign direct investments. So the foreign direct investments are very important, because the foreign direct investments, the green part, it is financing actually the deficit on the current and the current account. So if you have an attractive economy, all the economies, the small island economies of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, if you have an attractive economy, then you have more foreign direct investments, then there is more money flowing in than the deficit on the current account, and that deficit, that money flowing in means that the foreign reserves are higher, and that is good for the Eastern Caribbean currency dollar. There are many islands or many currency unions, many islands where there is a problem. For instance, for Barbados, this situation led to foreign reserves that is less than 3 months. If it became 1 month, then you have something called devaluation. Then basically you cannot hold the peg between the Barbados dollar and the United States dollar. In Venezuela, this is negative. This is negative because the current account deficit could not be financed anymore by the balance of capital and financial account. Venezuela didn't have US dollars anymore, so that's why this green would have become zero or low, and then there is a scarcity of dollars, and that means that there is a devaluation of the Bolivar. So it's very important for you to know that this green is basically part of it. We will look at it later. Part of it is the foreign direct investments coming in. The balance of capital and financial account, you can divide it into foreign direct investments and also other investments like the portfolio investments. Okay, if they are buying stocks and bonds, that's more portfolio investments, and foreign direct investment is more in real estate, in physical infrastructure, etc. It also has to do with the ownership, but I will not go into that. Now, if you look at this for the whole Eastern Caribbean, let's now look at the smaller islands. So let's look at the smaller islands, some of the islands. So remember, this is 4.6 billion in 2008. That's the balance of capital and financial account, money flowing in, dollars flowing in, and that is dollars. So now let's look at some islands. I'm just going to show you some islands. This is the same thing for all the islands. So let's look at Grenada, compare Grenada with Montserrat. So this is the situation of Grenada. Balance of capital account for 2008, Grenada is 660 million EC dollars, and in 2008 it is 658. So Grenada has a little bit of positive. If you only look at Grenada, the balance of capital account is more than enough to finance the current account deficit. And in 2009, you see that Grenada has 602 million, and that is more than the 470 million that is needed to finance the current account. But if you look at Montserrat, you see that Montserrat has a total different picture, because in Montserrat in 2008, Montserrat received investments. It's not only the foreign direct investments, but part of it foreign direct investments and portfolio investments, and it was only 45 million. And in 2009 it was only 41 million. But the current account in Montserrat in 2008 was 105 million negative and 77 million negative. Again, in 2010, 82 million negative. So if Montserrat was actually on its own, if Montserrat was not in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, that it's basically Montserrat, the money it receives from the balance of capital and financial account, it could not have financed its current account deficit. This means that the exports of Montserrat compared to its imports are way lower than the imports, and then there is not enough money, balance of capital account, financial account, to finance it. So if Montserrat was alone, then basically the foreign reserve stocks, the number of dollars and euros of Montserrat would have decreased. You see, almost every year it would have decreased, and then Montserrat would not have had, could not have stayed with the same pack. The value of the money of Montserrat would have devaluated. So basically, Grenada, those islands, are the foreign direct investment in Grenada. It is financing part of the current account deficit of Montserrat. So that's why these islands are together also, because together they are stronger. When something is happening in one of the islands, the other islands still have sufficient foreign direct investments to finance it. Now, what you see in, for instance, Grenada, you see here that there is basically a development where from 2004 till 2007 there was a huge increase in the balance of capital and financial account. That's in Grenada. You also see almost the same pattern in Dominica, although in Dominica, there was a strong increase. And Antigua and Barbuda, also very strong increase, 1 billion in 2007. So probably things are happening in this period in 2004 to 2007. There is an increase there. And this is Anguilla, strong increase. Now, what is the basis of this information? Now, in the balance of payments framework, I will not show you everything, but I just want to show you the background of this. What is the background of this information? What data do we have? Now, in each tab, I go to another tab of the framework. You see here all the data that are constructed, and you see here, for instance, the exports of goods and services. You see the compensation for employees, that's what they are getting from abroad. Operation surplus from abroad, that's the most profits. Transfers from abroad, that's the profit. We have figures from 1994 till, let's say, 2018. Those are more projections. From 2019, 20, 21, those are projections. But we have data since 1994. And in the imports part, you also see the development of the imports, 4 billion and going up. The imports are going up till 2008. In 2008, you have 10 billion of imports, 10 billion US Eastern Caribbean currency dollar, Eastern Caribbean dollar, and then it's decreasing a little bit, but then it is increasing again. Okay, so you have imports, and then you have compensation of employees going abroad. Those are people, what we need to pay to the people abroad, and profits going outside. How much profit is going outside? That's 380 million, etc., moving up. So if you want to know how much profit is going out to external holders of stocks, etc., of profits of companies, then that's the figure. And then transfer to abroad. And then you have the capital account here. You have the capital account, and you have also development aid, which is the data. So the balance of the capital account. Now, one thing I want to show you is we have this for We have created this for the total Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, but we also have this for St. Lucia. We also have this for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We have this information, the group information for all the islands in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. That's the framework. So the framework is actually the exports minus the imports, and we also have the capital account, and we also have some exports of tourism, transportation, other government, etc. Because tourism is important, transportation services, other businesses, government services. So those are the indicators that we have collected and that we have created for all the islands, Anguilla, Dominica, etc. Now, the next thing I want to show you is, suppose we want to look at Grenada, but we want to look not at this general overview of the exports and the imports and the capital account, but we want to look at the basic data. What is the basic data? How does that look like? Now, for that basic data, you have to go back and you have to see all this detailed data, and all this detailed data is basically, it is the balance of payments. This is the balance of payments of Grenada. Yes, this is the balance of payments of Grenada. We have the balance of payments of the Eastern Caribbean. We have the balance of payment of St. Lucia. We have the balance of payments of 8 islands in the Eastern Caribbean, and they also group together. Now the figures you see here is the figures that I see, I use to say this is coming in, this is money coming in, credit, and this is debit, this is money going out. So the gray part is money coming in, money going out. And you will look, I will just want to show you, before we go to the direct investments, I want to show you something. Merchandise. This is the number of people, the merchandise is what in 1994 in Grenada they spent on food. 322 million. That's the import. And the export is what they exported on merchandise. Sorry, merchandise is merchandise, and then goods procured, imports, services. You see services, transportation services, air and sea. You see travel is very important. This is tourism. You have insurance, all kinds of insurance here, and then you have other services, government services, and then you have income. Those are all current account. So the current account we just saw with the exports and the imports, this is the details of that. Also the transfers we saw, this is more the details. So we have a lot of data. And then we come to the capital and financial account. You see the capital and the financial account? Here we will see how it is composed, because the capital account and the financial account, you see that the capital account is smaller on average than the financial account. Let me see. Yeah, this is Grenada. And the financial account, you will see at row 73 the direct investments. Okay, direct investments abroad, outward. You see investments in equity, reinvested earnings, etc. Portfolio investment, this is another one. So direct investments is one. Portfolio investments, those are paper investments. and then you have other investments. So if you look at the portfolio investment, you will see, and the direct investments, those are big components. You will see a development of the Grenadian economy. Okay, and then you have those are the most important things. So now, if you look at Montserrat, you will see Montserrat, and you have the same information again for Montserrat. And if you look at St. Vincent and St. Kitts and Nevis, you have the same information in there. So what I want to show you in this episode is basically how to look at the balance of payments, that the balance of payments has the current account and the capital and financial accounts, and that the balance of payments actually that on the capital and financial account you can have more information about the direct investments, portfolio investments, and other investments. So you can get a lot of information outside of this. And in the Eastern Caribbean, if you look at the total Eastern Caribbean, go to that tab, you will see the same framework again, and you can get in the Eastern Caribbean what are we importing? Goods and services. Goods, how much are we importing? How much are we exporting? We are importing 2.8 billion in goods and exporting 812 million. See here, merchandise 2.7 billion. So from the goods there is 2.7 billion. And I would like actually to see the goods there. What is the number of oil? But probably the Eastern Caribbean currency, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank can give information, because out of this merchandise you are interested in number of oil that is imported. You see here, and if you look at the direct investments here for the total Eastern Caribbean, you should be able also, this is the capital and financial account, and you will see that figure. See, 1 billion, that's the, let me see, this is the net capital account, financial account, capital account and financial account here, and then the different aspects, the different parts. This is probably money coming in, direct investment, 500 million. Direct investments, portfolio investment is not a lot. Other investment 137 million. So those are the figures. So there are a lot of information in there. Now I want to close this. I want to close this by telling you that if you want to be part of my community of the data analysis and policy show, if you want to be part of the community, and the community is people, policymaker, investors, business owner who are focusing on the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union and the Dutch Caribbean Currency Union on 10 islands in the Eastern Caribbean. If you want, we will be adding more islands in the future. If you want to be part of that community of people who really focus on the data to make their decisions, to do their analysis, then please onboard to my community. How do you onboard? You onboard to my community by just clicking on the message box on this page, and then a message box will open, and then you will be onboarded automatically. You can do that overnight, you can do that whenever, 24 hours a day, because I have a chatbot assistant that will ask you some questions. Those questions are just about what your business is is right now and what you want to accomplish, and then you can be part of my community for free right now. And when you are part of my community, whenever there is a program to go deeper in these data analysis, maybe we have workshops. Maybe we have a specific workshop for a specific island in the Eastern Caribbean or in the Dutch Caribbean or all those 10 islands. Maybe there is somebody who wants to dive into a specific island with a specific analysis question. Those sessions, most of them, you have to invest in those sessions. Then you will be invited. I will only invite people in my community, or the seats will also always often be taken by people in my community first. So that's why you have to be in my community. When you are in my community, you can also send me questions, etc., for new things to talk about. So click on my community, talk to Anna, and make sure that you are in my community. Now, I want to ask you one last thing. If you found this of value and you know more people in the Eastern Caribbean, please share this episode on your screen, because by sharing this episode on your screen, on your feed, on your page, on your Facebook page, or on your Facebook profile, you will help me reach more people. We are in this together. We want the Caribbean region to become very, very competitive. We want more foreign direct investments to go to the Caribbean. We want to base our information, our analysis, and our decisions. We want to base them on figures, and that's why you need to tune in to the data analysis and policy show every week on Friday at 4 o'clock. So that was it. If you have any questions regarding this, please ask those questions. You can ask them below, or you can ask them after you have talked to Anna, my chatbot assistant. So that was it for this episode. Tell me below what you want you want me to talk about. Tell me below. As you know, I have 10 economic models. We can do simulations in the Eastern Caribbean, Dutch Caribbean. We can do simulation. We can simulate about future trends. We can discuss the unemployment situation. We can discuss any information, any issue you have where we have some data. Tell me below what you wanna talk about. Okay, so that was it. See you next week. Bye.